everybody. It is Monday. Kendall is cracking a soda, otherwise known as pop, and shit is wild out there. This is Luke, Who Is Your Father, Season 2. We have made it. We are almost there, you guys. This is the penultimate episode of the series. And Kendall is back with us. She is home from her European travels. If you are new here, you are late to the party. Season 1 was about me and my sisters here. We were triplets, separated at birth. We found each other when we were 11. Well, met each other. And then ultimately ended up finding our biological father very much later in life. And you should go listen to that. Quite a tearjerker. Season 2 has been a wild ride of having other people tell their stories. And we are just so grateful and thankful and excited and wrapping it up here in just a little bit. I'm your host, Jules.
I'm Ricky.
I'm Kenny.
And Kendall is back from the dead. She is back from her European vacation with our lovely mother. Kendall, it is so nice to have you back in the studio.
It is so nice to be back.
Tell us how it was. Did you have the best time ever?
It was so much fun. For those of you who don't know, we were supposed to take this trip 5 years ago, and then I tore my ACL and my mom broke her leg, all within like a couple months of each other, which was also 3 months before we were supposed to go to Europe. So we had to postpone it a little bit.
I was just going to say, can you imagine like dragging around Europe with a broken leg? And then I remembered our Boston trip.
Yeah, truly cannot. Absolutely not. So I took her to London, Paris, Florence, Sorrento, and Rome. And we got to go to Phantom of the Opera. We got to...
Did you meet any tuk-tuk drivers?
Thank God, no. Steered well clear of the tuk-tuks, yes. But we got to see someone rescued from the Duomo. We got to... All of our Airbnbs were just lovely. Got to go to a speakeasy in Paris.
Which one did you go to?
It's called No Entry.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It's very cool. And then... got to go to the Vatican City. Mom cried, shockingly. And
just because she was the Vatican?
Touched?
Yes, because
she's Catholic.
Mm-hmm. No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Half.
Well, it was the statue of Mary holding Jesus after he had been crucified that really set her off, and then she was just kind of overwhelmed about the whole trip in general. And just very happy that we got to go.
That's sweet. I'm so happy that you did that.
Yeah, it was really fun and lots of good food. We walked about 150 miles while we were over there, and just a really, really, really lovely trip.
Well, we missed you.
We did miss you.
Missed you too.
And I guess we have, any other pop culture events that have gone on while...
R.I.P. Matthew Perry.
Yes.
Chandler Bang. Chanandler Bong. Is that the joke?
Literally the night that happened, me and Mom were watching 17 again.
Oh, I love that movie.
So good.
So good.
The Broncos beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
You guys, the Broncos haven't beat the Chiefs since 2015. I don't think they've ever beat Patrick Mahomes.
You mean the Broncos beat Taylor Swift?
You know, that was the first game that she hadn't attended since they started canoodling.
I know.
And they did lose.
She took her private jet to console him right afterwards.
Okay.
I know.
You would be taking that private jet
I know.
to the grocery store.
I don't know if you people understand. I love Travis Kelce and he's off the market.
Yeah, Julianne and I have been Travis Kelce shippers.
Oh my God.
I guess not shippers because that implies in a relationship, but worshipers.
Stands.
Since,
I don't know. Years. It's been years. And now everyone's finding out who he is. And... oh my God, he's just so beautiful. Also,
so beautiful and kind and funny.
His brother's podcast is really great.
Yeah.
And I love Jason Kelce too.
Yeah.
And now I'm just getting all upset all over again. So
and we vowed not to talk about it.
I know. I couldn't bear it.
And then we did. But it's otherwise just been really dark in the news overall. Yep. So we'll just move away from that. Mm-hmm. Oh, Halloween came and went. Did you dress up?
I Did not.
Kendall?
I was just returned from Europe, so no. And I also realized that I put all my costumes in storage, and that would have just been way too much effort.
Well, I was a ghost pepper.
Nice. Oh, yes. So cute.
I had to go into my office for my first day in the office as a ghost pepper.
Were you like ironically a ghost pepper, or were you actually dressed like a pepper?
She was dressed.
I was both. I had a pepper hat on and did makeup ghost that you would be really proud of.
Oh. Do love me some makeup.
And got no votes.
Oh my gosh.
I'm very embittered.
I'm sorry about that.
Wednesday Addams won.
Well, it's topical.
Yeah.
Not super original.
I have to show you guys pictures of Tabby's baby. She dressed her as a mandrake, and it is...
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, that leads us right into our question of the day. You really teed me up for that one.
Yeah.
What, Ricky, of everything that you've seen, was your favorite celeb Halloween costume?
Oh, of this year? My favorite celebrity Halloween costume ever was Kylie Jenner as Christina Aguilera in the Dirty music video.
Yeah,
I hate to say it, but she absolutely knocked that out of the park. My favorite this year, I mean, God,
if you say, keep going.
Heidi Klum did do a group costume.
It was hilarious. I didn't know that this was something that she was known for.
Really?
Did
you go back and look at all of them?
No, I have to now because the peacock was absolutely ridiculous.
It's like
I had no idea.
She's known for that more than her modeling career at this point. She was a peacock. It was a group costume. She had other people be the feathers.
Yeah,
and her husband was an egg. It was hilarious. I did love it. I can't really think of another one that I really loved because the SAG after strike is going on, so they were pretty limited in their costumes unless they just totally disobeyed. So yeah, pretty limited.
I didn't understand that.
What?
They weren't allowed to dress up?
You're not
on the picket
line. No. Well, definitely not on the picket line. They were allowed to dress up, but they weren't allowed, quote unquote, to dress up as anything from struck content.
Oh, wow.
Which is like all content.
That limits it, I guess.
Which is why we didn't see very many like Barbies or because I would have thought that we would have seen hundreds of millions. Yeah.
This is
a lot of people like Megan Fox literally dressed as Kill Bill and then tagged SAG-AFTRA.
Yeah.
That's truly
it's an interesting
absurd.
role.
No, it was. It was. I mean, a lot of people do think it was absurd.
Yeah.
Like they have bigger things to worry about. But
yeah.
Okay. Kendall, favorite celeb Halloween costume?
I didn't know that this was a thing.
Oh, okay. So we got to get Kendall on the tiki-taki.
Yeah. I could not even tell you anything that anybody dressed up as at all. I will say that my favorite Halloween costume that I have seen is our friends Colin and Katie, who are just like beautiful people. Yeah. Colin dressed up as a Playboy bunny and Katie dressed up as Hefner, which was pretty hilarious.
I bet they did a great job with that too.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I saw this one took me off guard, but Taylor Lautner and his wife dressed up as it's Pete Davidson and Timothy Chalamet from SNL, and I didn't put those two together. I loved it. My least favorite Halloween costume was anyone that dressed up as Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. But I digress. All right. Well, Halloween has come and gone. And now what we have to look forward to is, and we've mentioned it a couple times, our big family Thanksgiving, which I'm so excited for. And that is just really what I've been looking forward to. What I'm looking forward to right now is our guest for today. This guest actually reached out on Instagram. It was the cutest thing, most just earnest thing. She had seen obviously podcast content, and she actually reached out to us just to sit down and talk to us and ask for some guidance and advice about and it's a very like natural progression into the season. I think after we've talked to Laura, after we have talked to Jason, and just like all the ethics behind that. And then so this person reached out and asked what is the best way to raise her children that are conceived via sperm donor, and just how to be honest with them and forthright. And we just had the most magnificent conversation with her. And so we obviously had to ask her to come on because she's also been active as far as like education. She's been writing books about, that children's books to be able to introduce the concept to children very early. Her name is Katelyn, and she is such a treat and so hilarious. So without further ado, Miss Katelyn. Welcome, everyone, to Luke, Who is Your Father. We are joined today by Katelyn Laywright and Ricky, who is actually remote with us today. Katelyn, how are you?
I am doing well. Thank you. How are y'all
We
doing?
are so excited to have you. I think we're looking to encompass all viewpoints, experiences in this podcast. So yours is really special to us. And so we're so happy to have you as a guest. Ricky, how are you? You've had a full travel day.
Another full travel day. It'll be my last for a month. And we've also got Daisy on the pod today.
We do.
Providing emotional support.
Yeah.
Daisy is Ricky's fiance's Chewini, who I got the pleasure of spending a weekend with a couple of weeks ago, and good God, she is just absolutely the sweetest. I've never had a dog have cuddle zoomies on my face before. It's so cute. But speaking of travel, Ricky, Katelyn, you are an author, illustrator, mother, and full-time traveler. #RV life. We're trying to decide if RV life and van life are two different hashtags. I'm sure they are. The first time we spoke to you, you were actually in your RV. It was so cute. She had all of her little plants behind her. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us what your life is like right now.
Oh, goodness. It is chaotic and beautiful. There are so many challenges that come with traveling full time. Something's always breaking. But with that, we've become somewhat knowledgeable and handy. My toolkit is growing, which seems to be, I don't know, a good thing for lesbians. You're kind of shamed if you don't have a proper toolkit. So it's a work in progress.
See, I have a toolkit that is missing the majority of the things out of it. I'm like one of those, I can't keep it together at all.
I think it is just a shining badge of honor for a person to have a full toolkit, be able to just whip out any contraption at any time. So good for you. So Katelyn, I think, and you already kind of alluded to, well, first let's talk about how we got in touch. You had actually reached out to us. Wait, is that right? Yes.
Yes.
Did you reach out to us first? You reached out to us via Instagram. I think right when we started the pod, just because of the content, and it was so sweet. I wasn't expecting it at all. Kendall and I actually sat down with you, had a little virtual session, and we weren't really sure what to expect going into it, but you were literally looking for advice for how to best approach donor conception with your children. And it was literally just like a little advice session, which I was so sweet. We were so happy to meet you that way and so honored that you felt we were qualified. And we hope that it was fruitful.
It was perfect. I could not have asked for more, because it is such a, I don't know, it's a strange feeling to kind of reach out to grown adults that were donor conceived. And it really, the intent behind it was just to educate ourselves on, I mean, parenting is already like hard as it is. And so any tips and tricks that we can just gather along the way, especially around, donor conception. We're still learning as we go. We're still learning how to have the conversation with the girls. And that is ultimately what led to me writing a book about it.
Yes.
Just break it down in a way that their tiny little brains can understand.
And we've actually become a lot more educated since the last time we spoke to you, which we'll get into, I think, at the later part of the episode. And your being an author, it actually came up in a discussion that we had with someone who I think that I'm not saying like could learn. Well, she actually responds to everyone that reaches out to her, it sounds like. So she just has kind of pioneered a lot of what is the word? Legislation in the donor conception community. Just a really great resource. So I'm excited to get into that later. But let's start from the beginning. So tell us where you grew up, how you grew up, and could just kind of take us on your journey.
My life journey. Okay. So I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, kind of on the outskirts of the city. I have 4 younger brothers, so life was chaotic, which I think is why we're drawn to it. I can't get enough of it. And I grew up in a private Catholic school, starting from pre-K into 8th grade, and then attended public high school for the first time. Hated it. I'm a true introvert, so it just was not my cup of tea. I'm going to throw myself under the bus here, spent a few weeks eating lunch in the bathroom. Like, I was that kid. I was like, this is awful. And I don't know if it was just because I was so sheltered, growing up in a private school, classes were smaller. So I was very, very shy growing up, still kind of am. And then I attended college. After 2 years of college in Richmond, I decided to drop out. I was miserable. My mental health was deteriorating. I did not know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so I traveled actually to California, where I'm at currently. And I lived with family for a little bit over a year and kind of dived into early childhood education. I did an EMT boot camp. I was just kind of diving into all my interests to see, like, what do I want to do when I grow up? And after about a year and a half, I moved back to Richmond, Virginia, and I graduated with a psychology degree and then went on to get my master's in criminal justice. After that, I got my first big girl job with Capital One, and I worked for them for 6 years, lived in Chicago during a short stint of it, and then back in Virginia. And then this is random, but I joined a women's football league in the city. And that is where I bumped into my wife. And she was the first girl that I ever had like weird feelings towards. And I'm just trying to digest that. So I'm like, this is interesting. I don't know what these feelings are, but yeah, that was just like a quick love story. I met her after kind of like a disastrous 3.5 year dating a boy that, I thought I was supposed to marry because that was like the next thing on the list. And then that did not work. So thankfully my beautiful wife came along and saved me. So
snapped you out of it.
Snapped me out of it. She's like, this is life. Let me show you life. So yeah.
That's so sweet. So
this is reminding me of Glennon Doyle.
This podcast is so weird. There's just so many strange little, and I know that's not what you were saying at all, but strange little threads throughout everything. The criminal justice thing. It's all just so interwoven. First thing that obviously caught my attention is take me back to Catholic school. Yes. Did you enjoy that?
To be honest, it's all I knew. I grew up, it was church on Sundays. It was family dinners. It was the very traditional upbringing. I think that's associated with the Catholic upbringing. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Like, I lived a very strict life. Sorry, mom and dad, throwing you under the bus, but I did. And I think, we're all, as a parent, we're trying to do our best, and that was their approach. And so I was never really like educated on what other ways life could look like. So my late 20s into my early 30s, that is when I kind of came into this, like, oh, families all look very different. Like, it's just not your typical white family, living a very, like, I don't know, sheltered life. And I know that's kind of stereotyping around the Catholic upbringing, but that was mine. So that's kind of all I knew, to be honest.
Katelyn,
oh, there you go, Rick.
Do you think you would have been less surprised by your feelings for your then girlfriend, now wife, if you hadn't grown up in a Catholic family and a Catholic school?
It's so funny because my wife and I have this conversation all the time because she knew very young. She knew very young that she was different in her words and that she was attracted to girls. And truthfully, I never had that feeling until I met her. And so had I been in an environment where I was exposed to that, maybe at a younger age and not playing women's football, like, wait a second, this is an interesting environment, not used to this, but I feel comfortable. Then maybe, yeah, I would have probably exposed those feelings a little bit younger. But I mean, I also lived like the typical tomboy life. I played softball. So I like fit all the buckets that people seem to create around the list, except for the toolbox. I just can't check that one off.
That's a new one. So growing up Catholic, were you raised to believe that homosexuality is a sin, that it's wrong?
Yes, very much so. Yeah, it's man and wife. Yep.
Yes. It sounds, and I mean, Kendall and I were raised in a Catholic home as well. But it sounds like you almost enjoyed the, maybe just because of your personality, enjoyed the routine of your Catholic schooling more than public schooling, which is interesting.
I did. I was shell shocked at that point. It took until my senior year for me to even come out of my shell a little bit. So I don't know. I mean, I think I did like the structure. I liked the smaller classes. Your classmates were family to me. And so, you know, kind of once everyone fled the Catholic coop and went their own ways to different high schools, I was shell shocked for sure.
When did your brothers join you in high school?
Join.
Or did they?
Yeah. So my brother right below me, we're 11 months apart, but he went
Irish twins.
We
So
are.
cool.
But yeah, he went to a different school, did their leadership program. So he left me hanging. It's fine. And then the other brothers were too young. We never really crossed.
Oh, man, I feel like if he could have joined you, I say join incorrectly.
We've just discovered after 32 years on this planet that Ricky says join.
It's very weird. It's very bizarre. I have to know.
I feel like he could have joined you, you would have had a better time of it. So that makes me a little bit sad. Yeah.
I have to know if you saw Mean Girls and if you felt a kindred spirit to Katie Heron.
Yes.
Yes.
She's just entering public school and she's eating
lunch.
Yes.
Oh, that's
straight
so
out
sad.
of, yeah, it was rough, but
yeah. Last question I will ask along the vein of Ricky's question, because I think if there's one thing that we could have changed about our upbringing, we all would have died to have a brother or brothers. Just tell us a little bit about what it was like. Ricky's never considered it. Oh my gosh, Kendall and I have always been like, it would be so much fun.
Yeah.
Tell us just what it was like growing up with 4 brothers.
Yeah, I mean, they were my best friends again, because so for our family, sports were everything. And that's how we bonded. I mean, we were outside every day and we still are close, but I will say, like, the 4 of them, their bond is just unbreakable and they will never grow up. They are the same as they were when they were 5 years old. Like, get-togethers, holidays are so chaotic and so loud. Like, nothing changes at all.
That sounds like so much fun. I feel like it sounds like a blast. Then do they still just bother you?
Oh, they'll just come up and like punch me in the back. And I'm like, why? Like, why? Apparently that's their showing like of love, but
their affection. That's their love language.
Do you think growing up in that environment contributed to you being introverted because you never really had to be extroverted in your home life? And so then you didn't really know how to do it at school and stuff?
That is a very good viewpoint. They always called me a second mom. I remember like one night we were sitting around, I think it was like at Perkins around a restaurant table, and everyone was like, let's give one word for everybody, like describe everybody with one word. And they all like unanimously said maternal. And I remember getting so mad about that. 'Cause I'm like, I'm your sister, I'm not your mom, but that was my role to them. It was just always taking that leadership role. And but I like that approach, actually. That makes a whole lot of sense because they are all extroverted in their own ways. So
Sounds like heaven to me. I always enjoy hanging out with a bunch of extroverted people because then I don't have to talk.
You don't have to
and I can
talk.
just listen and just be there. It's
Fly
really
on the wall.
nice.
Okay. Well, thank you. So you kind of bounce around, decide hell no to college. What was going on what made you say no to what was going on there?
She didn't know what she wanted to be when she grew up.
I know. She just said she was miserable. I was wondering why.
I could throw a curveball here. So my second year, so I've always been a Celine Dion fan, and I know this is gonna get weird. I won tickets to a concert in Canada. Okay, and I was like, all right, I'm miserable in school. I'm gonna go to this random concert in Canada by myself. So I bought myself a plane ticket, went and got my passport, and literally flew to this concert in Canada. And it was the most life-changing experience of my life because I actually met a group of girls my age that we just had like a hell of a night and heck of a night. Sorry. And I am still like best friends with those same girls to this day. And they were like the core group that's where I grew up in like that year that I took off. Like, yes, I moved to Cali and, explored all these things, but I also traveled and we were kind of Celine Dion groupies and just kept meeting up and just having like this incredible time going to these concerts. And they're my best friends now. And they're all, unfortunately, like all over the country, but we're still make time for each other. And I think they're the ones that kind of really officially pushed me out of my little shell.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with that story. I feel like that's Kendall's fantasy. Kendall, you would love that.
I would.
Who is your artist of choice, Kendall?
My artist of choice? Mm-hmm. I think I'm most close to a groupie for Andrew McMahon in The Wilderness.
Nice.
Yeah, I've lost track. I see him every time he's in my vicinity. Which is a lot. He tours a lot. He really likes it apparently after like 20 plus years. It's insane. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Kendall, you should make best friends, groupie friends at the Andrew McMahon show. And take them on the road.
They're all too young, man. They're all too young and they don't know something corporate or Jack's Mannequin. They're like, I don't know who that is. I'm like, you guys, I can't relate. I can't.
Well, that sounds like such a nice little like coming of age journey. Mm-hmm. And then I think if there's nothing notable, we should just dive right into you. The football league was in Chicago?
Richmond. Yeah.
It was in Richmond. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And did you join that to kind of try and like meet some adult friends?
Yeah, absolutely. Because this is when I was in a relationship with this boy. His name was Ben. And I, again, was kind of in a low. And I had a friend reach out from high school, played basketball with her. And she's like, hey, I'm playing on this league, this women's league in Richmond. You should come play for us. And I'm like, all right, why not? This will get me out and about. And so I went for it. In I think it was the first game, I met Katie, my wife, and I don't know, I don't know how much to explain here, but we, played the game. I know all of it. I know. And then after the game, everyone just kind of hung out and we were playing a bunch of like, I don't know, yard games. And at one point she literally laid me out and like shoved my face in the ground, just tackling, left an insane mark on my face. And that's just kind of been like a running joke that she left her mark on me from day one.
She marked your
like
territory.
Gnarly.
Do you have any pictures of that?
I do. I still
have wonderful. We would love to see them. We would love to see them. So the relationship that you were in with Ben, with your boyfriend, was 3.5 years, I think you said. And then to kind of take us through that. So up to that point, how many relationships had you had? What were they like? So on and so forth.
Yeah. So not a lot of like long-term dating prior to him. A handful of guys just starting senior year. That was my first boyfriend. But to be kind of honest, I've had a moment a few years ago where I kind of like reflected on those prior relationships, and I didn't really realize like how toxic and uncomfortable. I mean, every relationship I ever had with a man, there was something that was making me feel uncomfortable. I could never really like pinpoint what that was, but there was something inside me that just, I was not going to let my guard down. I wasn't going to fully trust that person, whether they did something right or wrong. I mean, there was something always there that just did not feel right. But I think there was also like reason behind that with the boys that I did choose to date, that just, they were not good experiences. And whether that was just me being naive and being like, oh, this boy likes me, okay, I like them too. Like, I just didn't have a voice during that chapter of my life. And so that is where my wife and I are like, we are going to raise some strong girls that will stand up for themselves, will know their bodies, know their worth, and not just give in to something because they feel like they have to or pressured, etc. So
That's so interesting as a way to explain that. I feel like this is the first time I've ever heard it being explained as uncomfortable, which I feel like I would love to hear if that's like a common thing, because I feel like that's a really good word to explain like why you can't just be with like, you know, why you can't just choose to like be with guys. Like, people really understand like you're uncomfortable doing something, like everybody understands that. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's a really good word to explain like it's not right, it's uncomfortable, and it makes my like yeah, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
As
to
far
be
as
honest,
like,
go ahead.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think what like accompanies the uncomfortableness was just anxiety. Like, I would get so worked up over the littlest things, or just, you know, even just hanging out with a guy, I'd be like on it. And I just never, again, I could never pinpoint why. So the anxiety level alone was silly.
And as far as your, I kind of like the role you feel like you were playing in the relationship. I'm gonna bring it. I have to ask, as far as like a Catholic upbringing and the way that the family dynamic that you had seen, and that I think kind of the church promotes. Did you feel like that had anything to do with the way that you were approaching relationships as well?
I think so. I mean, because I was never, I mean, for like lack of better words, I was a good girl. Like, I was so scared to get in trouble. I didn't really go to parties in high school. Like, I just was so afraid of doing wrong. And
Same.
yeah. So I still kind of am. Yeah, it's like Catholic guilt. It's like, oh, but yeah, I think, you know, going into relationships, like I was, even though I was uncomfortable, I was still dedicated. I was all in. You had my 100%. Like, I gave it my all as though it was going to last a long time. So I think that is like that Catholic background. Like, you're dating to get married.
Intentionally, yeah.
Exactly.
And then I was kind of leaning more towards like the role that the woman or the wife plays in a relationship, as well as kind of being the I don't want to say subservient, but you know what I mean when you say you were wanting to raise your girls with a voice. Any feelings about that?
Like, kind of more submissive.
Yeah.
Words. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that is why I even put myself in a lot of uncomfortable situations. Like, my first kiss was not even like my own doing. I was babysitting this family, and the oldest kid, who was a year younger than me, literally, this is going to sound terrible, but he locked me in his closet and said, I don't even know if I can share this, but I'm going to, and told me to like do things to myself so that I would be willing to kiss him. And I was in 8th grade. He was in 7th grade. And so I was extremely uncomfortable, and I just started crying in the closet. And, you know, he opened the door, pulled me out, threw me on the bed, and just like went for it. And his parents walked in the door. So I was mortified, never heard from them again for right reasons. But that was my first experience. And I'm just like,
I'm so sorry.
no, I mean, that's where I'm like, I wish I had a voice. I wish I had like shoved him off and like, but I was submissive, I guess is the way to say it. Like, I just was like, okay, I guess this is how it works. Like, I just was so naive, so naive.
Thank you for sharing. That makes my heart hurt a little bit. It sounds like there was the common thread with your relationships, and then this 3.5 year one that you were in when you met your wife. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Ben and I started out pretty strong. Like, the first year is, it was glamorous and like, oh, he's just the best. And then it's like life happened. We moved in with one another, and I think, long story short, there just wasn't a lot of trust there. And I think I had a lot of things that I probably should have focused on and got help for, but then also he wasn't really helping the cause. So it wasn't meant to be at all. The third year was basically just because no one wanted to end it. And towards the tail end of that is when I met my wife, and it was just like I had hit such rock bottom. And then after meeting her, I'm like, I tell her this all the time. I'm like, you're my home. You are where I feel safe. I didn't even have well, that's not true. I did have trust issues in the beginning, but she was the first person to be like, all right, let's work through it. Like, what do you have? And so it was because of that and her willingness just to like hear me and like just work with me through them. I mean, it didn't take that long. I mean, for her to just build that trust, and I still to this day, I'm like, you're home. Like, that's it.
How did you like start exploring that? Because I assume you guys started hanging out like after the football game and stuff. How did you kind of explore that relationship and then ultimately end your other relationship and that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So she became like a good friend, because that was, again, towards the end of my relationship with Ben, and I was a hot mess. And she was there just to like console me, through all of it. And then randomly, again, another concert story for you. I had tickets to a Katy Perry concert in Jersey, and I sent a group text to all the girlfriends in Richmond, and Katie responded. She was like, yeah, I'll go. So we drove to Jersey, still friends. And we just were like, this is either going to like solidify the friendship, or like, this is just going to be weird. Cause at that point it was still so new. We had never hung out one-on-one at that point. It was always in a group setting, and ended up having just a heck of a good time. And then that was kind of it. Like, it was story written, came back. And from that point on, I mean, again, it was just kind of like an instant feeling with her of like, this is it. Like, I don't even feel weird about it. Again, like, there was a few weeks of like processing, like when we were friends, I realized that I was starting to have like romantic feelings towards her, and that was a whole process to just kind of go through and understand, because it was a total flip of the switch from my upbringing. So
just being with someone who has always known that and has always, I want to know about like that part of it. Because I would imagine that it might be, I don't want to say difficult, but difficult for that person to be on this journey with you and try to help you figure it out. And I just want to know what that piece of it was like. And like the words, I want to know the conversations, like how did we make this decision?
Yes. So, okay. My wife, she had no idea that I was interested in her. Cause again, there was a few weeks of like me trying to get through this and process these feelings. And she had a girlfriend at the time. And one day, I remember this vividly, I was over there. We were going to go, I don't even know where we were going to go. We were going to go like out to lunch or something. And we were leaving the apartment, and she was on the phone with her girlfriend, and I was just waiting. I'm like, okay, is she going to say, I love you? Like, how serious is this? And so, because I wasn't about to be like a home wrecker. I'm like, I hadn't shared any feelings towards her at this point. And she said, I love you. And I was like, oh, like just dagger. I'm like, it's too deep. This isn't gonna work. Like just suppress the feelings. And I don't know. I'm trying to be honest, I'm trying to remember like when we first expressed those feelings, but it took a couple weeks for me to just kind of like share with her, like, I'm serious about this. I know that like there's the whole, like, are you just curious? Or are you just gonna like, you just here to have fun and like test this whole thing out? But again, it was no different with her than it was from the guys that I dated in the past. Like, I'm dating you, or I want to date you, and I am serious about it. Like, there's no questions asked. Like, I'm in this. And she never really like questioned it. She never questioned it at all.
She's like, duh.
Yeah, she was like,
Hello.
I think I disappointed her because she was so excited to like have a straight friend. In her words, she's like, I just want a straight friend to hang out with, like no whatever, no drama. And I ruined that real quick. So
Yeah. I'm wondering if, and this just occurred to me, because if you're the person in the relationship that has always been out, always felt this way, I think that you would be uncomfortable coming to a straight friend and confessing feelings for them, maybe. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that would be a different, they almost have to wait for you to come to them. And just to backtrack a little bit, because you've alluded to it a couple times, and if you're comfortable sharing, great. If not, totally okay. But it sounds like you were struggling with your mental health coming into this relationship. And I was just wondering if you would open up about that anymore.
Yeah. I think like I touched on anxiety a little bit, and that was, I was seeing a therapist at the time, and she had diagnosed me with generalized anxiety disorder. And,
we don't know anything about that. All three of us. We all, yeah.
Yeah. And then she also, it was interesting to me. She said I had like OCD of the mind. So it wasn't like OCD about things, around me. It was like thoughts. And I would just get like very hyper focused on my thoughts. So I think it was just like the endless cycle of like, well, that gives me anxiety, so I'm going to really focus on that. And I just could not shut it off. And so, like that last year with Ben, that's where I sat, and it was exhausting. I didn't recognize myself. I'd like to think that like I'm a pretty happy, bubbly person, and that was not me. And so just one day I kind of looked at him and I'm like, this is it. This is it. And like, we're done. It was mutual at first. And then, he kind of just realized what was happening and like begged me to stick around. He was like, I envision marriage and kids with you. And I'm proud of myself, because it was also, I think, one of the first times I found my voice, and I'm like, this is not it for me. And I knew at that point, after meeting Katie, after being exposed to the community in Richmond, all these like women who just were proud of who they were, proud of what they brought to the table. I think that was just all I needed to be like, I am going to be okay. I do not need a man. I'm going to be fine. And then Katie was just like icing on the cake, because it was just that comfort that I had been longing for at that point in my life.
Yeah. And hearing that she feels like home, I'm sure that just helped a lot with your state of being.
Was that like kind of, did you find that was the source of a lot of your anxiety? It was like trying to like not really, I don't know how to explain this, like not knowing what the problem was, but then like you were very clearly like kind of hiding part of yourself away for like a very long time, and then kind of getting to explore that. Did that help with your anxiety?
Tremendously. Like, it really was such a defining moment in my life, because coming out to my family, I did not even think twice about it. I think I did it like 2 weeks after dating Katie. Like, I just went full force. And because I just, at that point, I'm like, I have nothing to lose. Like, this is someone that makes me incredibly happy makes me feel safe. She checks everything that I would have been searching for up until that point. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think because of that, kind of finding who I am, finding my voice, knowing my worth, it just was a big defining moment in my life, for sure.
When you were starting to realize that you had these feelings for Katie, how did that butt up against your upbringing and what you had been raised to believe, if at all? What was that kind of like?
I don't know. I blanked out. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna lie.
It's okay.
I totally blanked out.
No, it's like you're so Catholic upbringing.
Yes.
When you start to realize that you're having feelings for Katie,
yes,
was there any kind of
reconciliation that you had to do?
Yes. I mean, we still talk about God. We say blessing over our dinner. But it has been a journey, and it still kind of is a journey. A lot of guilty feelings that we still work through, but at the end of the day, we're holding on less to religion and more to our faith. And it was kind of ironic because when I came out to my parents, my mom just like stopped going to church. And I actually recently, like 2 weeks ago, had that conversation with her. I'm like, Mom, I've always found it kind of ironic that like you claim you're supportive and like you show us unconditional love, but you just stopped going to church like conveniently right around the same time I came out. And, you know, she shared that it's her own things that she's going through and working through in her own marriage and life. And so, I mean, I think it's just going to be an endless journey just because of the strong upbringing. And, but we have strong faith in our home, and we kind of hold on to that. And just the way we cope is by spreading love. And we think that's what God would want at the end of the day. So,
yeah. Can you just tell us in as much detail as you're comfortable about that day, about coming out to your family?
Yeah, so I actually did it in phases. I went to my mom first and took her to Cheesecake Factory and
Butter her up.
I did. And she
Literally.
I was so nervous. I started crying before I could even get the words out. But my mom and I, we were pretty close. So I wasn't too concerned about her not being accepting. But sure enough, her first words were like, I already knew this. Like, because Katie had come over for like a family barbecue when we were still friends, but apparently we were too good of friends in front of everybody, whatever that means. And so she knew, just mother's intuition, as she claims it. And then my dad, so this is going to sound kind of crazy, but I actually texted him because that's kind of our relationship. We don't really have serious conversations face to face. It's just not really our style. And I don't really remember the words that he said, but it was like, I feel like he said something like all good, like, cause that's just one of his go-to phrases. Like, life's good, man. It's all good. Thanks, Dad.
It's amazing.
But I was actually so scared to tell my brothers because they're just my people. And they were the last ones that I told. And I mean, they were so accepting. I don't know why I actually was so fearful of sharing it with them, but I mean, I'm very, very grateful for the way that my family handled my coming out. I know many don't receive that type of feedback, so I'm very grateful.
And
I'm inclined to believe, because your family was so loving and accepting. Obviously, your mom has given you her reason for stopping going to church pretty abruptly after you came out. I feel like I'm getting choked up. That's coming out of nowhere. Don't know. But I'm inclined to believe that she might have done that because she didn't want to hear a bad word about the choice that you had made.
Yeah.
Like, out of protection and love for you, she said, well, I don't want to be in an environment where people don't necessarily embrace that or think that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was my first thought as well.
Solidarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Katie's role in all of this, was she coming with you to these things, or what kind of role was she playing with? What kind of support was she giving while you were going through that journey?
Yeah, she was extremely supportive. She offered to come with me like physically along this journey, but I was very like, no, like I can do this. And if it goes poorly, like just be there to catch me. But yeah, she was so supportive and didn't force anything. She's like, you do it on your own time. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing it tomorrow. So we're
You
just
loved
rolling with
her.
it.
You loved
There were no
her.
questions asked.
This is so cute. You were like, nope, I'm doing it. We're getting it out of the way.
I'm serious. And she still like gives me crap for it today because it took her a very long time. Again, because she knew so early that she just felt different. And, you know, she had to actually come out multiple times to her family. She did not receive the same feedback that I did. So her journey was very different, a lot more difficult. And I think because of that, she just was like, you do it on your own terms, on your own time, the way that it feels natural for you. So,
and then it happened, and she was like, what the fuck?
Exactly.
That was it?
Exactly.
That was it? Because I was going to ask you, and I would never ask you to speak for her if you're not comfortable. I was going to ask you a little bit about her journey and her background and how her family is incorporated, but I don't know how much you want to go into that.
Yeah. I think she would be comfortable with me sharing it. Again, we're both very open. And she definitely had and still has like a pretty heartbreaking journey. She had to come out twice to her parents. The first time did not go well. She was essentially caught with another girl in high school, and that was like the first time her parents found out. It was ugly. The two parents were like, you two will not be hanging out, you won't be seeing each other. Like it was awful for her and for her girlfriend at the time. And so for many years she just kind of played the act like, I'm not gay, I'm not gay, I'm gonna date men. And she didn't date, I think she only dated one guy, and just to kind of like show everyone that, you know, she's not gay. But she ended up coming out the second time right before her and I started dating, and it went over a little bit better than the first time. But unfortunately, so her parents are they're supportive. They love me. They love our daughters. They, you know, have always shown love since day one. Some of her siblings, it's not really the same story. And we, you know, speaking of Glennon Doyle, she's kind of the one that inspired us to set boundaries for our own sake and for our own mental health. And it's still very hard to this day for her to have to experience that because for one of her siblings, she was very, very close with them growing up. So she had to kind of mourn that relationship.
Did you know about the experience that she had with her siblings before you came out to yours?
What do you mean? Sorry.
Like, did you know, had she told you kind of how that had gone for her and the relationship that she had and the effect that it had on it before you came out to your family?
I think she had. No, because I'm telling you, I came out to my family really quick. So I don't even know if we even had those conversations.
I was wondering if her experience with your siblings is what made you nervous to tell yours. Because I mean, Ricky, Kendall, and I, they would definitely be absolutely the first people that I would tell.
Yep.
And it's heartbreaking to, like, you had relationships with men that you felt uncomfortable in and you weren't sure why. I cannot imagine forcing myself to be in a relationship with someone for the sake of image or what I could just, it makes me want to cry. It makes me very sad. But I'm so happy that you guys found each other and you obviously are an amazing support system for her. So tell us about
What happened next?
So yeah, after like 2 years of dating, no, a year of dating, I went to her parents, and it was the scariest day of my life. I sat them down and I asked if I could marry their daughter. And at that point, like again, I knew they supported us in the way that they knew they could. They were kind of walking the journey and figuring it out along the way, as were we. You might hear my daughter. I'm sorry. Yeah, and so I like sat down with them at the kitchen table, and I'm like, I don't think this is information that you are going to appreciate, or I don't even remember what I said, but I stumbled, as I am right now, because it was so hard. But I did. I asked them if I could marry their daughter, and her dad started crying, and he's Catholic, very strong in his beliefs. And so knowing that, it was, I don't know, it almost felt like I was asking like a priest for their permission to marry it was so scary. And I think because at that point I was crying again, and like in hysterics, and her mom was sitting next to me, and she was like, "Oh, sweetie," like rubbing my back. And she just was showing support in that way. And I ultimately got the approval, but it really wasn't until like a few years later, after really getting to know them and kind of show them love and be loved by them, to, get to the point that we're at today, where it feels like unconditional love.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then in 2016, we were married on Anna Maria Island in Florida. We love the Gulf Coast. And yeah, I think 2017 or 2018, we started having the conversation about having kids, and really started educating ourselves on what that even looked like. I'm pretty sure we Googled, like, how do lesbians have babies? Like something along the lines of that. We had no idea.
Okay, so how do lesbians have babies?
Yes.
And then tell us about your journey from that point.
Yeah. We realized that we needed sperm, which makes sense. And then how does one find sperm? So we even had the crazy conversation of like, do we like look to a brother, an uncle? Like, do we go to someone we know? And we're like, and I know some people do that, and like to each their own, but for us, it was just too close to home. Like, we didn't know how to explain that if we were to go that route. Like, you're an uncle, but you're also a dad figure. Like, it felt foreign to us. So we ended up picking a sperm bank. We chose Seattle Sperm Bank. We're like, let's put as much distance from us as we can. Yeah, and it was a process. It is a process finding a sperm donor. Very overwhelming, very stressful, but I think for us, we're so grateful to have our two little girls that it is completely worth that process.
So how soon into your marriage did you start trying to figure this stuff out?
Yeah, so we were married 2016, so it was 2018 when we started kind of diving into it.
Mm-hmm.
And had you guys spoken about having children before you got married along the process?
Yep. So she has 3 younger siblings, and then myself having 4 younger siblings. My mom is from a massive Irish Catholic family, so we were like, we are going to have all the babies if we can. So
this all sounds very familiar.
Yes, Kendall and I come from a big Irish Italian Catholic family.
Mm-hmm.
And then were you still in Richmond when you picked the sperm bank in Seattle?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what was the thought? I feel like I'm trying really hard at working on not assuming things from people. What was the thought process there when you said you wanted to be as far away as possible?
Yeah, because there's such I think a stigma around sperm donors of just like, oh, you might marry him one day. Like you should, ask your person you're dating, like if they were conceived via donor, which I mean, I think you still should, because it's just growing so much. And so, but I think like, I don't know, again, we were so naive about the whole process that it made sense to us at the time. And plus Seattle Sperm Bank, like for other reasons, it was more, I think, in our budget. They're a little bit more affordable than other sperm banks. It's a bit smaller. And so while the donor pool is smaller, it was actually, we liked that because it can be so overwhelming to have hundreds and hundreds of profiles, of these donors to look at.
Is that the reason that they're more affordable, because of the smaller donation pool and things like that? Or is there another reason?
Yeah, I think that is. It is. It's just a smaller bank. I mean, they're, obviously like regulated, and they do all the extensive testing as well. And so, I mean, they checked off every box. But I think they're definitely smaller compared to like California Cryobank and Fairfax. Yeah, I was going to ask.
That was us.
That's awesome.
Today I learned.
Is that why? Sorry, Kendall. Did you already know about the potentials for sperm banks to be kind of operating like the wild, wild west, and that's why you had a long list of things that you wanted to check off? Did you find that in your research?
Yes, very much so. And I remember pulling up like some page online that just said like all these moments in time where cryobanks were sued for, not doing the right research, not handling material the way that they should. And it just was like, I don't like, at one point we're like, we don't know where to go. We don't know who to pick. But ultimately, I mean, again, like kind of honing in on Seattle, they just, we called them, they just felt more like involved.
Personal touch, yeah.
We weren't just, someone that was about to just give them money.
You weren't dropping off sperm in a hotel lobby or anything like that.
Not.
I'm so curious about the process, because I think we've heard the process of like when this first got started that I had no clue about until we started doing this podcast, because I think our process was probably pretty similar to yours in that, you kind of like pick a profile or whatever based on certain things. For our mom, it was hair and eye color. That was the criteria. But yeah. But she was able to, pick a sperm donor and like kind of move forward with it through that. But like, I didn't realize before that was the process. It was just like doctors being like, oh yeah, we have we have on-call residents that are just like providing specimens, and we'll pick whatever one is most similar to whoever you want it to look like. And like no information surrounding anything. It's so bizarre. So I'm very curious about how like your specific process went.
Yes. Yeah, it was mind-blowing. You could do like celebrity lookalikes. Like if you wanted your child to have a donor that looked like a celebrity. To be honest, every time we talked about it, the word shallow came up quite a bit. Mm-hmm. We just felt so shallow, like we were grocery shopping for like our donor. Like it felt very weird a lot of the time. And so like the first few, I mean, I'm trying to remember. I mean, it took at least, I want to say a month or two just to find our first donor, because again, it was so overwhelming, and we were kind of honing in on like eye color, hair color, what type of education, like, and at the end of the day, we just looked at each other and like, what matters most to us? And so with our first, and with my wife, Katie, carrying, we tried to find a donor who had similar features to my side of the family. And then, again, we're kind of like proud of the Irish background. So having that Irish background was important to me at the time. Like big Notre Dame fans.
We were devastated when we found out that we were not, in fact, Italian when
no.
we were, so we get it. We were
Or Irish.
so,
Are we not Irish either?
I don't think we're Irish either, but we identified much
We
more
are.
with the
We
Italian
are.
side. Okay, so I
We
totally
like
get that. Yeah. So you're going through, honing in.
Was it online?
Yeah.
Could
How were
do,
you?
like,
How were you
filters?
flipping through things?
Okay.
Yes.
I'm
it's
imagining, I
filters.
feel like ours was like a binder.
That's so nice. I had never
I
thought
think
about
it
that. You had
was.
filters.
Yeah.
Before we move on, speaking of shallow, I know, Kendall, you just laughed at the fact that the stipulation was hair and eye color. I think that's probably because every single person on my mom's side of the family
Yeah,
has
so we were
light
looking
eyes
at her,
and
yeah,
wavy
dingus.
brown hair, which I don't think we've ever thought of before. I don't think it was just the type of baby she wanted. I think she wanted us to share characteristics with her and the rest of the family.
And her.
I said her and the rest of the family. Yes.
Okay, so filter. I hadn't thought about a page on of course that's how you do it now. So you were going through filtering out and just kind of like process of elimination.
Yeah.
Did you guys fight at all? Were you like, no, I want this one?
So it did get to a point where we were like, okay, you sit down and you pick out your top 5, and then I'm going to sit down and pick out my top 5, and then we're going to see if any of them cross. Because again,
draft.
Yes, exactly. And I want to say we narrowed it down to 3, but I'm pretty. It's like it makes for a boring story, but we were pretty much on the same page, like with both girls.
It doesn't make for a boring story. You don't have
no drama. No drama.
Okay, so you, and before I forgot, because I'm sorry, this is totally from like 4 paragraphs ago, but my thought, you know what? Probably doesn't matter. Just cut this out, Ricky. My thought was when you were looking for them to be as far away from Seattle as possible. I was thinking that you were afraid of the donor to come looking for them and being close to the donor, not so much close to the siblings, which yours makes more sense. But I just thought I'd throw that in there. Anyways, moving on.
Because I mean, not to like jump ahead, but just with like meeting some of our daughter's donor siblings, there's like a sibling portal through Seattle Sperm Bank that is anonymous. You share as much as you want to share, and there are families on there that are not interested in ever meeting in person, at least at this point in their journey. They're not open to it, and some are not open to even really considering the donor as like an integral piece of their child's life. And so it exists. So like that's a completely fair viewpoint. But no, it was more so just the sibling aspect.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're going through, you decide, oh no, what is wrong with me today? No. Oh, how did you guys decide that Katie was going to be carrying this first one?
Because she's 1 year older than me. That was it.
I love it. Quick and to the
No
point.
drama.
Boring.
Amazing.
Okay, so you boring. so you pick a donor. It takes a little bit, and then what does it look like past that point?
So it looks like an empty bank account. No savings whatsoever. It's gone. No, it's so we bought with our first daughter, her donor. We bought 5 vials, and we stored them at our fertility clinic in Richmond. They require like extensive testing on Katie at that point, like just all the blood work and everything, just to ensure she's even ready to try to conceive. And once
Did they also require, sorry to interrupt you, but did they also require extensive testing for the donor?
I was going to ask that.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
good.
Yeah, I can even back up a little bit as far as like the filtering, and it's all online. You can filter by height, weight, education, again, eye color, hair color, race, ethnicity. Those are like the big ones. And once you do that, it populates whatever search you've generated, and it's they only provide baby photos. We don't know what he looks like as an adult. And from there, they give you, if you click into one of their profiles, you get like their extensive health history, their family health history, kind of like a donor profile that gives you all their characteristics, their hobbies, kind of who they are as a person. I'm trying to think. I think there was like a Kiersey test thrown in there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, they give you like, I think what they can.
And what year was this that you were doing this?
2018.
So for our listeners, stark difference in some of the experiences that we have heard about. And it's encouraging,
The hotel lobby
of course.
was a true
story.
The
hotel lobby was not a joke. Yeah, not a joke. And I think that's where so much there is some controversy around the donor conception industry, which we had no clue about until we started doing this. And then we started hearing about it and we were like, you know what? That is kind of weird. So just hearing that these steps were taken in your case is encouraging. Yes. And refreshing.
Yeah. I think for us in our personal journey, the hiccup that we have with all of the regulation or lack thereof and I don't even know what the answer is. So I can't even tell you, but in terms of knowing how many children were conceived from this donor. So with Seattle, I'm only going to speak towards Seattle. They only know if a child was born if you report it. And so if there's families out there not reporting births, then they're going to keep allowing other families to use that same donor. And so they're technically supposed to cap it, I think at 15 families. That was another reason why I picked them, because other sperm banks, it's a lot larger. But after 15 different families reported birth, they stop giving the sperm out to additional families.
Yes. And that's one of the things that was brought to our attention is that in a lot of states, there is no sibling cap. And then the way that you are saying that there's no way to enforce that whatsoever. So I think what the people that we have spoken to are fighting for is for a donor to only be allowed to donate a certain number of times and to cap it that way, because then they're sure.
And then you have to restrict also the number of vials that the sperm can be split into, because that's where we're kind of uncertain, because we were like, oh, our sperm donor only donated 10 times, so we're probably good. And then we learned that, no, you can do 15 vials per time. So
it's a lot of
now
stop
we
it.
are,
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. Ooh, I don't like it.
Can I tell you what they do when they hand you the vial?
They're like,
please.
Okay. So, well, we use two different fertility clinics. So the first one, it comes in this aluminum canteen, and they hand it to you and you're like, okay, yeah, to keep it cold. And we had to go from floor 2 to floor 3. So we're riding in the elevator, just holding it by the handle. And we were like, we should give it a pep talk. We should talk to these little guys. And so we did. We gave it a little pep talk in the elevator. And then you get into the room and they're like, okay. And so the vial is literally that much. And so they'd ask you to hold it in your hands and just kind of keep it warm. So it's the whole part leading up to it, in my mind, is just it's just not intimate. There's nothing intimate about this. So yeah, you're just holding your little swimmers in your hands and you're like, please let this work. This is it. Then it's, yeah.
Was this a petri dish situation, or was this artificial insemination?
So this was IUI.
That's what.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we
did.
Okay.
Turkey baster.
Wow. I don't think I knew that. Well, I don't know. Anyways.
And you said you bought 5 vials. So was that 5 separate attempts, or do they just do all of it?
So it kind of depends on which fertility clinic it's a fair question. So some I think use 2 vials, but the one we were using, you only use 1 vial per attempt.
Okay.
So my wife,
Can you send them back if like the first one takes? Like you can be like, I would like to request a refund for these 4 vials, please.
you really can. Yep.
Wow.
Amazing.
There's a whole buyback program. It's unreal.
Oh, I'm learning so much.
I
I
am
love it.
too. So you get your vials, and then how did it go from there? How successful was it? How quickly?
Yeah. So again, we bought 5 vials, and on the 3rd vial, the 3rd attempt, it stuck, and which we feel very lucky because I know, or at least they say, like the average for IUIs is around 6 attempts, and so on the 3rd attempt, we felt pretty blessed, and so.
I was gonna say, is 5 like doctor recommend? Like, how did you pick 5?
So our intent with picking 5 was so that we would have extra vials for future siblings. If it,
Oh, okay.
but
Dang,
then it
so
also
you can keep that stuff for a long time. Well, I guess we knew that.
yeah, keep them frozen.
Yeah. Okay, so 3rd attempt successful.
Mm-hmm.
We're overjoyed, I'm sure. How was the pregnancy? How was all of that?
Yeah, my wife rocked it. She was a personal trainer at the time, and so she was very active and loved staying active. I mean, really, she says to this day that like her pregnancy, she loved it, and she felt lucky with not having like the morning sickness and all this stuff. But postpartum was a little bit different. She, dealt with postpartum depression and all the joy that comes with hormonal changes and everything. But the pregnancy itself went smoothly, thankfully. And, her water broke. She kind of called it. She was like, it's a full moon tonight. I just feel like this baby's coming. And sure enough, I kid you not, it was like 20 minutes later after dinner and her water broke on the couch. And I'm like, just weird. Just
No,
so weird.
on the couch.
On the couch. I know. It wasn't a lot, thankfully. It wasn't like the movies where it's just like gushing out.
Yes.
Yes. So, we went into the hospital and she wanted to try to have the baby naturally. And she labored, I think she's going to kill me for not knowing this. I think it was like 27 hours. And her body, she was so exhausted that she was literally passing out in between contractions and like twitching from passing out. And so her body was just like enough. And she asked for a C-section because she was just done at that point, rightfully so. And
men, I know that none of you are listening, but if you are,
I cannot imagine, like, because I'm that person who, if I'm waiting in a line for 10 minutes, I will not switch lines because I've been committed to this. I can't imagine being in labor for 27 hours and then having to do something that you could have done.
Yes.
I would imagine it's probably not safe to have a baby naturally when you're that like that exhausted. You probably don't have the energy. It's probably not safe. You probably don't have the energy to push, which is crazy. So talk to us about postpartum depression. Were you guys able to identify that quickly? And what was that like?
So we did not identify it quickly. It's funny because looking back, like we knew about postpartum, we knew it was a real thing, but when you're in the thick of it, it's like you kind of just write it off as like, we're both exhausted. This is just a new norm. We're not used to it. We're figuring it out. But after 6 months postpartum, I mean, she was so distant and we were just kind of coexisting at that point. We weren't even communicating. We were just kind of in survival mode. And it was at that point where like something's not right. And so when she made an appointment to go back to her doctor and they prescribed her with that. And so she was put on medication. And from that point on, she admits that it was the game changer and helped her tremendously to kind of bounce back. And I think kind of for the first time feel motherhood the way that she wanted it to feel.
And that's so important, and absolutely love that you're bringing more awareness to it because it's so prevalent. And I can't imagine as a mother feeling that way and not I'm feeling like there's something wrong with you, that why am I not feeling connected to my baby, connected to my wife, all of this. So I'm so happy you guys were able to identify that. I think we should wait until we hear the story of your second baby to then get it really into how you guys decided to approach donor conception with them. So take us through kind of early motherhood, deciding to have your next baby, that process, and then we'll get into how you guys have decided to approach it, which is unbelievable.
Yeah. So, I mean, once we kind of got over that first rocky bump in motherhood, it was, I don't know, it was just everything that we really dreamed of. We, at that time, were living in a house in Richmond. And when our daughter, right before she turned 1, is when COVID hit. And we both went and worked remotely because of it. And at that point, we had talked about really changing or altering our lifestyle, because while we were extremely happy, we still felt like there was more that we wanted to do, even just within our role as mothers and the life that we wanted to give Kingsley, our daughter, at the time. And so at that point, we decided that we were going to sell everything, our home, our cars, and we bought a truck and a travel trailer, and we hit the road. And we decided that we were going to travel full time. So after watching all of like the tiny home Netflix shows and everything, we're like, we're doing it. This is it. And kind of transitioned into that lifestyle. And from there, we were kind of on a high. Like everything was kind of falling into place for us. And
how did your families react to that?
It's still a sore subject.
They're like, how do we visit you?
Exactly. Well, we're so grateful, because they come meet us on the road. Especially my mom. My mom is a very hands-on grandma, and we crushed her heart and soul when we said, we're taking your very first grandbaby across the country. Sorry, but this is, what we're trying to do. So, I don't know. She's visited us multiple times, and I love it because it's a side of my mom that I don't get to see when we're in Richmond. She's out of her element. She's hiking. She's the one trying to do crazy stuff, and I'm having to rein her in. So it's been great, but yeah, that's definitely the hardest part, is being away from family. My brothers, Katie's, parents and siblings. It's definitely the toughest part.
It sounds like, and I can understand that, but it sounds like such an enriching childhood. Oh my God, I cannot imagine growing up that way.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I was just going to say, it sounds to me like a lot of outdoors, a lot of, it's just a way I think that 99% of children do not get to grow up today. And especially in the day and age of screen time and blah, 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 blah. It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And how old is Kingsley?
So she's 4.5 now, but we started traveling when she was 1.5.
Okay. And do you guys homeschool? Do you plan to homeschool? Okay.
That's the plan. Yep.
Oh man. Saints. I was a nanny once, and they told me I was supposed to homeschool, and I was like, how does one teach English? This is impossible. It's like, okay, this word sounds like this because there's an E at the end. This one also has an E at the end. It sounds completely different, and I can't tell you why.
That is literally where we're at right now. She's just like learning words, and I'm like, I can't explain it. Just believe it. Just roll with it.
You'll know it.
Mommy says, so it's true.
Exactly.
Yeah. So tell us about life on the road, and then when you pulled the turkey baster
for baby number 2.
Yes.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Life on the road was great. We traveled a lot. Landed in Cali. Fell in love with Cali. Kind of had a moment sitting across the table, where we're like, do you want to try again? Like, this is kind of fun. Why not add another one to the mix? So we found a fertility clinic in California, Newport Beach, and it was a totally different experience compared to the Virginia fertility clinic. A bit more progressive, a little bit more aggressive as far as like medications to prep you for, trying to have a baby. And so we went down the donor rabbit hole again because with Katie's initial blood work, so I don't know if y'all have heard of it, CMV. It's like I don't even know. It's like a monovirus, something like that. But 80% of the population is positive. I, however, am negative.
Oh, look at you.
But it bit me in the ass because that narrows down your donor pool tremendously. And so fertility doctors, they just don't want you to use a CMV positive donor if you're negative. And that's what Kingsley's donor was. So we had to go down in the donor rabbit hole again and find a new donor for me to use. And so we kind of relived all of that again, but with a much smaller, and what I mean like smaller, it was like 15 donors to pick from.
Was that kind of heartbreaking that because you had planned to use the additional vials to conceive basically a blood sister for Kingsley? Was that kind of a giant letdown, or did y'all just roll with the punches?
It was definitely a letdown for myself at first. Katie was very good about being open to our family just forming however it was meant to form. But I just had this dream that, our kids, despite, how we have to go about having kids, that they would be related in some way. And so that was a dagger at first. But then again, the more I educated myself and just kind of opened my eyes to other possibilities, that's when we landed on our second donor, who we absolutely fell in love with. His approach, what kind of like, I hate to say it this way, but like what sold us on him was his handwritten note that he had. And he said that he was extremely open to meeting his offspring one day, that he basically understood what he was getting himself into, because a lot of these donors are just college kids trying to pay off their tuition, and they're very open about that. So it was very refreshing to see someone who kind of fit our approach as a family.
2 questions. One, what did you know about the other donor in terms of their preference for anonymity? I don't know if I missed that. 2, when they were a little bit more bullish on medication to prep you for the pregnancy, did that include warning you that you might have multiples?
Yes. So they did warn us about having multiples. I don't know if it sounds crazy, but we weren't like opposed to it. Like twins, it wasn't a scary idea. I had nannied in the past and I had nannied twins. I'm like totally open to it. I love it. My wife was more hesitant because she got pregnant naturally, without any of those meds to help boost her hormones and whatnot. So she was more hesitant on my behalf, but I guess with my like prior history, was okay with it because I already thought I was going to have a hard time trying to conceive. So I'm like, well, hey, if this is going to increase the odds, then like, let's roll with it. And I'm not going to lie, I forgot the first question. It's just
That's okay. That's my fault for asking you 2 in a row.
I love it. Your honesty is.
I've been out of the corporate world for like a year now, and my brain is just now like it's child talk all day long. So
no, it's literally like an actual faux pas to have asked you a question like that. So that is my fault. What did you know about the anonymity preference of the other donor? Is the other donor completely anonymous?
Yes. So they're anonymous until the girls turn 18. It's like semi-anonymous.
And how did you feel about that?
So we knew from the get-go that we wanted our girls to at least have the opportunity to seek out their donor or our donor if and when they wanted to. I say when, but when they're 18, that's when we can gain access to the donor's information. So we knew we wanted that for them. Yep, go ahead.
So is that standard with the Seattle clinic? Is that their donors have to be open to at least provide their information for when their offspring turn 18, or are there like, is that a
Options.
filter?
Yeah.
I guess.
It's a filter.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are donors that are completely anonymous. There will be zero contact. Yeah.
Okay.
Until someone takes a DNA
I know.
test.
Exactly.
That's one of the pieces of legislation they're fighting for as well, to ban anonymity.
Yes. Did you have any fear about surrounding postpartum, and were you afraid that like you might experience it, or was it kind of like you guys now kind of knew what to look for more specifically and could like catch it more early on?
Yeah. So this is fun. Yes, we were going to be hyper aware about postpartum depression. And so, like, kind of going through it quickly, I conceived or got pregnant after the 5th vial. So it was my last vial. And I was having like a pretty smooth pregnancy, like, very similar to Katie's, actually. Like, felt nauseous, but no morning sickness. My only real thing was like high blood pressure at certain points. But then towards the end of the pregnancy, Katie and I started going on like a disconnect again. And it was kind of weird, because I'm like, okay, I was expecting this postpartum with, the exhaustion that comes with a newborn. And so I go in, we have our second baby girl, and my postpartum mimicked Katie's, but for completely different reasons. I don't think I personally like I don't really know how to word this, but I don't think my hormones kind of sent me into a postpartum depression. I think what Katie and I were going through as a couple kind of gave me the feelings of like extreme loneliness, anxiety, and everything. Because she actually found out, I don't know if it was right before I had Knox, our second girl, or right after, that she has Hashimoto disease, which then triggered hyperthyroidism, which then triggered depression. So she went into actually a much deeper depression than she did when she was dealing with postpartum. And that was like the first 7 or 8 months of Knox's life. And so from the tail end of my pregnancy, and the first 7 or 8 months of her life, it was definitely like the lowest in our marriage. And it has taken a lot of rebuilding, and we're still working on it and having the hard conversations and everything. But it was postpartum, but in a very, very different way.
That sounds hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard especially at that time. And just such a testament to like sticking with each other and working through it. And the fact that you've always felt that way about her, that she's home. I think there are people that wouldn't be able to get through it. You know what I mean? But you guys love each other and trust each other. Yeah. So tell us about, hi, Frankie. That's Ricky's dog. Her dog is 15 years old. Still like leaps around like a little, she doesn't seem like she's a day over like 5. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I had a question earlier. So when you guys found out about the mono thing that you had, did you consider at all saying, okay, no, Katie's going to carry this. We're going to try with Katie again to carry with these other 2 vials?
Not really, because I knew that I wanted to carry.
Yeah.
She was completely supportive of me, trying next. And I think, if anything, that might have caused like, I don't know, a little bit of
Resentment. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but that brings up like a whole other can of worms, because I think like she still wants to carry so badly. And I had a lot of insecurities around that with me going next. And so it's like all these weird feelings that, or maybe I shouldn't say that, but I feel like heterosexual couples don't really feel those feelings because it's a two mom situation and like both aren't carrying kids. So it's
factual.
Just, yeah.
No, it's a
I think-
completely different.
Yeah.
I'm sure dudes are like, thank God it's
Oh,
not
of course
even
they
an
are.
option.
Of course they
And
are.
my spouse is like, I'll do it.
Okay, so you have Knox.
Mhm.
And you're working through this. So I think now is a great time to tell us what's even brought us all together, which is how you and Katie have decided to approach and raise your sperm donor conceived daughters.
Yeah.
Outstanding baby names, by the way.
Kingsley and Knox, so
Amazing.
cute.
Thank you. Kingsley is actually the donor profile name of the donor we used for her. So it's anonymous baby names, right? So we don't know his real name, but his baby profile name was Kingsley. So we loved it. And we're like, well, this is one way to honor the man that gave us this gift of life. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And then Knox, she was feisty as a mother in the womb. So we needed a strong name for that one. She's feisty. But yeah, it's been a journey. After we had Kingsley, again, we were always open to meeting the donor. We would love to meet the donor one day, but we're going to let the girls, lead that journey. Even if we do want to meet them, or again, we're going to let them lead that. But then in terms of the donor siblings, that was kind of something we didn't really consider when we first tried getting pregnant. We knew we were going to report a birth and the possibility of donor siblings, but we didn't realize the extent of it. I think that's when we first became educated on the regulation of it all and how we don't truly know how many are out there. But for the first year of Kingsley's life, we weren't really interested in seeking out those connections. And then just the more we had conversations, we're like, no, like that feels kind of selfish on our end. And again, to each their own and their own approach with this. But for us, it just felt like we were taking something from the girls, whether they wanted it or they didn't want it. But for right now, like we're the voice for them. And so we wanted to be able to at least give them that opportunity if they wanted it down the road. And so we started when Kingsley was like 2, like just reading children's books about how she was made. So we seeked out a donor, we needed donor sperm, the whole thing. And that's really all we've shared with her, is just how she came to be. And then when it came to donor siblings, I just realized that this was a much harder topic to talk about with them. And we don't know how to do it. And so we tried seeking out resources, and that is ultimately what led me to y'all, because I was like, I just want to get in it. I want to talk to those who have lived it, and we want to do right by our girls and just do the best that we can, and educate ourselves in a way that will hopefully help them kind of process this as they get older and really understand that they have a bunch of siblings out there.
I think the way that you guys are handling it is amazing. And, we can only speak from our experience, but like we can't even remember learning about our adoption. It was just part of our story from the get-go. And I think the way that you're doing it is how our parents did it as well. And so there was never like that, like,
Bomb.
like, yeah. And I think that's, as long as it's always a part of their story, then it lessens the chance that it's going to affect them in a negative way, I think.
I also think the gravity that you're giving to donor siblings is huge.
Mm-hmm.
We were lucky enough to find out about each other and meet each other relatively early. Hearing the stories of other people that are donor conceived, their primal wound, I guess, as you would call it, their yearning to connect with their siblings surpasses their want to, in most cases, I think, to connect with their donor. So I think that's huge that you understand that is going to be something that you have to all go through together. And it's wonderful that you know and you're open to it, because I think that's where so many people experience so much hurt, is not knowing that they had siblings and then not being able to reach out, try to find them, connect with them. It's heartbreaking in a lot of cases, and then beautiful when they are able to connect. But it's wonderful the way that you're approaching it. And then tell us about your project that you have, the solution that you have tried to find. You're on your own.
Yes, one solution. Yeah, I don't know. I woke up one day and I'm like, something needs to come to life for our girls, and I'll be damned if it's me. I'm going to do it. I bought myself an iPad off Facebook Marketplace and knew nothing about how to even write a book. But yeah, that was my solution, or at least that was my hope, was to produce a children's book that could convey this information in a way that our little girls and other littles out there could understand. And so I was searching for an illustrator, because again, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And my wife was like, absolutely not. You're talented. You're going to do this. And so I was like, okay. So I went for it. And that is, my extra special leaves came to life. And it's just a silly little story that, really talks about how, again, children are born via donor, sperm donor or egg donor. And not only that, but then also includes the piece of donor siblings, and kind of touches on the similarities between donor siblings that are, similarities that they might have, or the unique qualities that they might have from one another. And
I'm unique. That's me. We all have a copy of it, and it is a fill in the blank book as well. It is so freaking cute. Again, it's called My Extra Special Leaves. It's available on Amazon, and it is self-published by Miss Katelyn. Go ahead, Rick.
And Katelyn, I really can't tell you how meaningful that will be. We each, unbeknownst to each other, or I didn't know about Jules and Kendall and they didn't know about me, but have a copy of Tell Me Again About the Night I Was Born, which is a book, I think it's by Jamie Lee Curtis, about adoption. Mm-hmm. And that was huge for me growing up. I revisited it a million times just to understand the concept. And I believe that they read it a lot as well. So just to have those types of resources on hand is huge.
Thank you.
And it feels like it's coming from someone else. I know that you're the author, but it feels like it's coming from a different source, right? So it gives it more, it's like, oh yeah, this is not just something that my parents are spouting to me or whatever it is. It feels like it's, and so yeah, we just could not be more proud of you and supportive of that project. And it's absolutely lovely. It's wonderful.
Very sweet. Thank you so much. Yeah. It was fun to bring to life. I used my daughters as inspiration. I feel like when I read the first book that has the 2-mom family that talks about sperm donation, I feel like that's Kingsley kind of narrating it in her quirky little way. And yeah, I think it's been so much fun. And I, to be honest, have learned so much along the way, and I'm still learning. I attended a Pride event yesterday as my first trade show. I was nervous as all get out, and it was incredible to meet the different families. And just, I mean, again, I'm still learning on how families look. And the fact that I'm still being educated as a 34-year-old woman, I'm like, we need to get it out there. These kids need to understand that every family's different, and that is okay and normal. And so yeah, your words, they mean the world more than you'll ever know, because this just, again, I told my wife, even if this flops and nobody wants it, just even if it touches one person or just enters one home, like, I feel so fulfilled. So thank you.
So you said the first book. Are you working on more?
I actually have 3 out now.
What?
I'm sorry. Yeah, so the first one talks about sperm donation with a 2-mom family. And then the second one is...
Wait, what's that one called?
So they're all called My Extra Special
Okay,
Leaves,
okay,
but yeah, there's a subtitle that talks about what the specific narrative.
Okay, got it.
That's so cool. You found a little niche.
So
I
it's My
love-
Extra Special Leaves, the 2-mom family.
Mhm.
And then the middle one?
is Egg Donation and Surrogacy with a 2-dad family.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the third one is Sperm Donation with a Single Mom by Choice family.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Amazing. You're incredible.
Very sweet. I'm telling you, I have a lineup. People are begging, especially adoption. That's going to be my next one. And then poly families, trans families,
Yeah.
heterosexual families. I've already started that one as well, where it's going to be a sperm donor being used as well. So it's kind of endless, but I love that. I'm like, but it's also in a sense kind of heartbreaking that there's nothing out there,
Yeah.
It's taken this long. And so I hope that they will
Control what you can control. Who would have thunk? A little Catholic girl, Catholic school, growing up
Who would
around
have
these books.
thought?
Well, Katelyn, we are so excited that we got to speak with you today. And I think just to wrap us up, if you could just give any closing remarks, piece of advice to anyone listening that could benefit from anything that they've heard today, what would it be?
Oh, that's a big question. Coming from the Catholic girl who grew up extremely sheltered, live fearlessly, because it is so damn beautiful on the other side. It's so beautiful, and find your voice, whatever it takes to find it. You deserve it. Know your worth, know your strengths, and just again, live fearlessly. As cheesy and corny as that sounds, but I don't know, it's so worth it if you can. So
Amazing. Thank you so much for being with us today. I have goosebumps. You were absolutely wonderful.
so
And what are your socials?
Oh yeah. How to plug your socials?
okay, at Lost in Our Normal. That is my main social. And then for the book, it is at My Extra Special Leaves. I'm only on Instagram. I'm not going to lie. I don't do TikTok. I'm an old soul. So
Same, girl, same.
Instagram
Beautiful.
is where you'll find me. Yeah.
Go find Katelyn. And then the books are available on Amazon, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The 3 books.
Perfect.
We'll link everything.
Go
for
find
you
her
as
on
well.
Instagram and then go find her books on Amazon. And thank you so much, Katelyn. I'm sure we will talk to you again soon.
Y'all, she is so funny, so unique. I have so much respect for someone that can just sit there and zone out a little bit and just tells that she's zoning out. She cracked me up, and I just thought that was really beautiful. And I think that really beautiful how open she was. I think that postpartum depression is a very, 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 very important conversation topic. So anytime that someone can bring some awareness to that, I absolutely appreciate. And just hearing about her just whole story. Again, another beautiful coming out story. Interesting to hear both sides of that. And I just really love her and just think she's a crack up.
And I don't know if you listeners know this about me, but I am highly anxious, especially I tend to hyper focus on things that I have said that might not have been received well. So I wanted to bring that up because I kind of joked about Katelyn maybe relating to Katie Heron in Mean Girls and eating lunch on the bathroom. And I did not mean to be insensitive in any way, and I'm sure she didn't take it that way either. But I felt like I was able to joke because I also had no one to eat lunch with in high school. So I felt like I could joke about it a little bit. But I also loved just being able to talk to somebody who did the sperm donation thing when it was a little bit, it was less of, residents
Wild West.
donate. Yeah,
Yeah.
It had more kind of, it was more what we think of when we think of sperm donation and that kind of thing. And just also what struck me was when she was talking about how she was in the relationship with her boyfriend and how she just felt uncomfortable and didn't know why.
Yeah.
And I think that that's not something that people really think of when they think of coming out and realizing that you're attracted to the same sex or whatever you're attracted to that's maybe not what you're quote unquote supposed to be attracted to. And I thought that was a really kind of eye-opening way to explain that.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, she was really incredible. She reminds me of like every friend from college that I've ever had. Just really salt of the earth.
Yeah.
And I really did. Yeah, it was nice to hear about a facility that practices with some ethics. So I think that's a really nice way to round out the series, is to know that that does happen. And just the way that she approached us in saying, I really want to go about this the right way, is just a huge testament to how those conversations are changing and how people are approaching things differently. And like Laura brought up, that when her parents told her, it was kind of revolutionary that they told her when they did. And now, just in the overall community and zeitgeist as a whole, it's perceived to be better to just be honest the whole way. And we're seeing that in action because they had kids later.
A nice little, I think that was interesting that we didn't, it's the concept of time has eluded us a little bit throughout this series. And we're like, oh yeah, that was a long time ago. Things they definitely are not changing as fast as we would like, but it was nice to see that some strides are being made. And Katelyn, just so you know, when you listen to this, Ricky wants to write a screenplay about your Madonna journey. Yes. So be expecting that. So thank you again, Katelyn. Again, she is on Amazon. Her books are on Amazon. We have My Extra Special Leaves, and she's written several from different points of view, different family structures, essentially. So please go check her out, and go check her out on Instagram. She's My Extra Special Leaves as well. And then maybe you can snoop out her personal Instagram and see her and her beautiful family.
I would highly recommend it. It's a great follow.
Yes. Well, with that, I think we are signing off.
In the meantime, we hope you leave feeling a little bit more normal in your own family dynamic, excited about the possibilities, and curious about the world around you. Have a good week, take things in stride, and leave people better than you found them. We'll see you next time.
Bye.